And here's how they're seeing women. They're seeing them as these objects of desire, as these, hot bodies. I mean, they don't show women as being valued for anything other than their sexuality. They don't show women as being valued for anything
It's been 84 years.
The year is 2008, and a game has come out that is rife with controversy because the extreme right is trying to ruin games by saying that certain things go against their ideology and personal beliefs, calling the game misogynistic for its depiction of women, and wants said offensive content removed from the game. But no, the gaming industry shouts, if you do not like the game, then just do not play it. The extreme left is of course not content with that and think the extreme right has just completely lost the plot. Wait, that can't be right. Let me start over. The year is 2018, and a game has come out that is rife with controversy because the extreme left is trying to ruin games by saying that certain things go against their ideology and personal beliefs, calling the game misogynistic for its depiction of women, and wants said offensive content removed from the game. But no, the gaming industry shouts, if you do not like the game, then just do not play it. The extreme right is of course not content with that and thinks the extreme left has just completely lost the plot.
Wait a minute!
My point here is that there was a 10-year gap between these two controversies and nothing has really changed, as we are still fighting amongst ourselves using kind of the same talking points but from different standpoints, as there has been a great cultural shift since 2008 and the left is the one that is in charge and more influential when it comes to culture now. The major difference, however, is that of the difference in motives. The extreme right was trying to remove potentially offensive content in order to protect minors, while the extreme left is trying to infuse content in order to indoctrinate minors and spread their ideology and their cause along with it. Both sides are equally hated by the opposing side, of course, but in my opinion, they are not equally harmful, as one was motivated by the protection of a certain group and the other is motivated by the corruption of that same group so they can gain the coveted acceptance they are so desperate for, and it was also motivated by a narcissistic desire, I would say, to see their exact self represented in everything they consume, because if the game doesn't affirm their beliefs and revolve around them, they seem not to be able to relate to it at all or enjoy it for that matter. In other words, one was a suggestion and a call for extra measures other than the rating system that games currently have to protect minors from being exposed to adult content. A suggestion the gaming industry ultimately ignored and moved on and away from, and the other, a demand for forced speech, forced thought, and forced acceptance, with no care about who would be exposed to it, as according to them, we should all accept their ideology regardless of age and or personal beliefs. A demand, however, that the gaming industry ultimately had to bend the knee to. I obviously cannot tell you which side is right or wrong, as both sides think they are the ones in the right, and I have my own biases as well, and I think you can all tell which side I have chosen to stand with. Of course, in this video I'm talking about the extreme portion of both sides, and neither extreme is helpful, as both of them are, well, extremes, and that can only lead to overreactions and overcorrections regarding any issue. And this is why the real question we should be asking in this entire debate about which preference the gaming industry should appeal to is this: how do we know where we're going when we don't know where we are and have been for many years now? Because from where I'm standing, it looks to me like we have been at the exact same spot we were when this whole thing started, just going in circles, waiting on when the ball will finally move back towards our half of the circle, just so we can pick it up and hit the opposing side in the face with it. A major reason why this happens, in my opinion, is mob mentality. Both sides think they are on the right side of history, and hardly anyone thinks for themselves, as they have conformed to what their respective group believes and stands for. There is no clear goal anymore, only us versus them. It's not about getting what we want, it's about them not getting what they want. It's like Timothy Kane put it, gamers don't know what they like. And it's true, we don't. We only know what we don't like but that doesn't really help developers at all. And it doesn't really help solve the problem with games nowadays, because it's like someone cooking a meal for you, you not liking it, telling them what you hated about it, and then when they ask you what they can do to make the dish better next time, you just stand there saying things like, yeah, your cooking sucks, you are an idiot, I can't believe someone let you in the kitchen, I'm never supporting this restaurant, you or your cooking ever again. Then, when they tried to make the dish again, with the minimal feedback they got from you, who still went back to the same restaurant despite you hating the dish so much, by the way, say, I hope you never make food ever again. I can't believe you'd have the audacity to do this to my favorite dish. Is this what you call improvement? But now, another person from the table next to you that also had the same dish chimes in to tell the cook that they shouldn't have listened to you in the first place, because the original dish was perfect the way it was and they shouldn't have removed all those delicious ingredients in the first place. So you turn around and start arguing with the customer that liked the dish while the cook just stands there. Both customers are complaining, both customers have the right to be complaining about something they didn't like, but the cook still remains at a complete loss about how to even go about improving the dish. But there are certain cases where at some restaurants, the cook is going to start yelling at both of you or one of you and start calling you names as well. And this madness never stops. And that's what both sides have been doing essentially. The extreme left is trying to infuse their worldview into games, but complain when other games include more conservative worldviews and beliefs. They also do not care about creating new original characters and games of their own, they just care about ruining your already established characters and stories. At the same time, the extreme right wants woke stuff out of games because they consider them extreme and they think that it could potentially affect children, but don't want extreme violence or sexual content removed because children have no business playing mature video games in the first place. And this goes on and on and on and on. Meanwhile, the moderate gamers, who stand in the middle of all this, watch as both extremes are tearing each other to pieces, and the games that are coming out being a complete and utter mess with no real identity, direction, or character anymore, as developers scramble to remain neutral in an environment that uses either financial motivation to lure them towards their side, or verbal online outrage, mockery, and low game sales to lure them towards theirs. Whatever they decide to do, however, they just damage their own reputations and ruin childhood favorite IPs in the process. And this brings me to the second reason this is leading nowhere, because the gaming industry has no backbone anymore. Studios are so afraid of picking a side, while at the same time hiring employees with political views that are almost always left-leaning, who then think they can throw online tantrums and engage with their customers in the most unprofessional and childish ways possible. It has become a war of extremes. As a result, when games do come out, we never focus on the things we like. We focus on the things we don't. And because we have learned to think as a group, we can't see the wood for the trees anymore. And even if we do like a certain game, once the group decides it's not good, we somehow get convinced we don't like it either, and we shouldn't even try it for ourselves first. What is more, we never seem to judge the games for what they are anymore. Just games, a medium through which one tells a compelling story while the player has fun at the same time. All we do now is we just look at which boxes these games tick, because both extremes have conditioned us to associate certain feelings with certain aspects. If, for example, we see a black character in a game now, one side will quickly denounce the game as being woke, while the other will praise the inclusion of a marginalized group. No one will wait to see what the character adds to the game, what their personality is like, whether their skin color is important to the plot, or anything of the sort. We've been conditioned to view games through the prism of our respective extreme groups' biases. I am not separating myself from these tendencies, however, but I have noticed that I didn't used to view nor judge games based on these parameters before this culture war between the two extremes began. And to be honest, the thing that only further affected my view and criteria upon which I judge a game even more was me following along with the constant drama on X and YouTube. So while I will try to refrain from doing so whenever a game comes out, I know that I will still be susceptible to such judging because I've trained my brain to do so now. I realized that when I was talking with a friend the other day, and he told me he was enjoying Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 way too much. And I was like, how? Did you not see how childish Vavra was being on X? And his response was, who's Vavra? Because he's a casual gamer and he doesn't know, nor involve himself in drama, nor care for that matter about what happens online. And that's when it hit me. Part of the reason I loved games when I was a child was because I had nothing else distracting me. My view of the game was solely based on the game's merits, not its studio, not its developer, not its publisher, and in fact, in most cases, I didn't even know the name of the person behind the game itself. No one online was telling me how I should in fact hate the game for this or that reason, and no developer was being childish and rude to their own customers either, and if they were, I wasn't there to see it. As I said before, I do have my own biases. I support the right side of this whole debate, and I also supported the extreme right side when it came to mature content in games, especially because some children may be exposed to it. But I don't really anymore, because I realized that it is a parent's responsibility to research and look into a game before buying it for the children, because their children cannot buy the games themselves, and it is not an entire industry's responsibility to do so, especially when they have already informed the parents that the game is aimed at mature audiences. It took me a while to realize how much this was skewing my view of games and how much it was affecting me. So I know that change cannot happen overnight, but if we don't even try, then it won't come at all. So I will try to distance myself from the portion of the circle that I have been choosing to stand on, and join those people who are waiting for the other extreme members from said circle to join them in the line they have formed, so that the two sides can finally run parallel to rather than around each other.
Finally, inner peace.
So that the right line can focus on their games, and if the left line's true goal is really to just have fun with games as they claim, and not in an effort to seek validation and acceptance, then they can stop ruining existing games and they can just choose to create the games they want to see instead of forcing others to do so. If the left line's numbers are as many as they claim, and the demand for what they want to see in games is actually that high, then two markets within the same industry can be formed, and this madness of constant negativity and fighting about every single game that comes out finally stops here. And if the demand for such things in games is not that high, as we have been saying for years now, then that part of the market can slowly disappear from the industry. In other words, create games for each side and see which one is more profitable and thus viable. And let this thing be settled in an organic way that gave both sides an equal fighting chance. So one way or another, this will be resolved. Both sides can then focus on their games, and maybe, just maybe, we can go back to judging games on their merits once more. Emotions will always somewhat influence our decisions, our actions, and reactions, so we will always have stronger reactions when we see the destruction of the games we've loved since we were children, but let's try to not let those strong feelings about one game dictate our reactions towards any and all new games.
Why? Why do you even care? You could have walked away.
The cycle ends here. Must be better than this.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. The fact that you bought a game that you didn't like doesn't give you the right to be cruel or unkind to the people that developed that game.
I'm really tempted to go back and join that circle again. It's taking all my willpower not to grab my pitchfork and rejoin them. But yeah, I said I will try to stand in that line, and that's what I'm going to try to do.